Welcome to VoteProPot-Cast, brought to you by VoteProPot.com. There's a guy serving a life sentence without parole for a nonviolent first offense for cannabis. Imagine that. Jamaica is planning a medical cannabis research center. New England patriot Rob Gronkowski is going to partner with a CBD product manufacturer. We have these stories and more that hopefully we can get to here on Vote Pro Podcast. Thank you, everybody, for joining us once again. I'm Phil Adams.
I'm Jay Britton.
And I'm Andrew McCready.
We have the first story that we're going to cover because it's in the news all over the place, and that has to do with all of the hundreds of people, sick people across the country who are being admitted to the hospital complaining of lung disease that are connected to vape cartridges. Over the past few months, since June of this year, hundreds of people in more than 30 states have been admitted to hospitals with mysterious lung ailments, all of which seem to have been linked to the use of e-cigarettes. Now, the Food and Drug Administration and the Centers for Disease Control are taking a hard look at this, launching a full-scale investigation into what's going on here. Last week, New York State Department of Health shed some more light on the mystery with reports that 10 out of the 18 bootleg, and then we emphasize the word bootleg THC cartridges that they've received from the patients who have tested positive apparently have vitamin E acetate, a compound most often used in topical skin creams and supplements. So what that means is that, it's not just CBDs or THCs in these cartridges that are getting people sick. There is something else, and in this case, a vitamin E acetate. And this is, from black market cannabis cartridges.
Important to point out that it's not the cannabis, even though some people in the press have linked this disease and this illness to THC. That's bullshit. It's definitely not the THC.
Well, it's clearly not true, and listeners to our podcast can download an editorial that's up there. I've gone through and read a lot of articles. One of them was from someone from townhall.com, a fairly conservative-leaning aggregator of news, and I believe debunked that whole idea, and you can go online and at VoteProPot.com or on Apple Podcasts and find it. It's one of the latest episodes, and it's an editorial on that. So check that out. The point we want to get across here is that there is something amiss with this particular batch of vape cartridges. People didn't suddenly develop an intolerance for THC after 10,000 years.
Well, the thing about it is, when you make these cartridges, it depends on the type of extraction method that they use to get the concentrate, determines on how they make the fluid, make the e-cigarette cartridge, make the cartridge fluid. Now, a lot of times they use glycerin or some kind of thinner like that, and that's where they're having the problem, because some people are using vitamin E oil. Now, you can put vitamin E oil on your skin, and you can eat it and ingest it, and it's fine. But if you vaporize it, turn it into a vape and inhale it, and then it turns back into oil in your lungs, that's what's causing the infection, as I understand it.
Aha.
That's what they're thinking, yeah.
With the CO2 extraction, they can actually come up with a product that goes straight into the vape pen that doesn't have to have any other additives. And at least that's what I was told today when I went by a couple of dispensaries and I brought the subject up with the bud tender, and next thing I knew, every bud tender circled around, and we were discussing this.
Wait, let me get this straight. You went to a dispensary today?
No. I went to 2 dispensaries.
Okay, all right. Just checking.
Well, you can't get everything at one.
Well, no, they were sold out of my favorite product, so I had to go to the other one.
This is a great opportunity to bring in and introduce to our listeners our new health and wellness correspondent.
No.
What?
She's our chief health and wellness correspondent.
She's in
our
charge of the
chief
whole department. Phil.
health, and right, she's covering the whole thing. Our chief health and wellness correspondent, Faye Berger Mitchell. How are you, Faye?
Hey, all right. Welcome.
First of all, I love the title. I mean, my mom's going to be proud. So
There you go.
Love being in charge of the whole
Mom's gonna be
department.
proud.
Yeah, chief. I've never been chief anything.
You can just call me Chief.
I'm always an Indian. I'm never a chief.
Well, I'm doing good. How are you guys doing?
Good. Now, before we get into, we want to talk to you about this whole vape discussion, but, for our listeners, Andrew and Jay and I all went to the same high school, as we've mentioned before. Well, turns out, so did Faye. She was one of the gang.
Yeah,
and we've reconnected with Faye. So tell us what you've been doing for the last 45 years.
Oh, yeah. How many years now?
And I mean, I want a yearly accounting.
Exactly. I know. Well, I'm so happy to be with you guys and that we reconnected, and we're all, I guess, still passionate about legalizing cannabis. So, it started back then, and we're still fighting the fight. We're a lot closer, though.
Well, I'm not still fighting. I'm fighting it again.
Oh, you're fighting it again.
Yeah, I went away and then I came back.
I practiced a little bit of civil disobedience for a few years. But
all right.
So,
In the form of getting high.
exactly. Basically, I went to college. I graduated with a degree in dietetics, and I was a registered dietitian and worked in the healthcare field in many different capacities for most of my career.
Is that a fairly lucrative career?
Not at all.
No. Okay. So it's passion driven.
It's passion driven. I'm a helper.
Oh, that's great.
I'm
That's
a people
great.
helper. Yes. It's also, it's primarily a female career too, and that's one reason why it's not as well paid.
What made you decide to switch gears then?
Well, so I had a private practice for many years, and I helped patients in a lot of their aspects of healthcare. And then, basically, what happened was, first, some family events. Sort of some stressful family events that I needed to attend to. Life happened, and I needed to attend to some other things, and so it was kind of hard for me to run my business while I was attending to these other issues. And then on top of that, I developed some health issues myself. So I had to kind of think about it for a little while. I put the practice on hold, while I was having some medical issues. And that's actually how I became a medical cannabis patient in Maryland.
Okay.
So was these health challenges.
So tell us what you're doing now.
So now what I did was I am working in a dispensary. And so what happened was I started as a patient. I had appetite issues, weight loss issues. I had issues with some pain after some surgery and some IBS system. So I started going to the dispensary myself as a patient. And I started visiting. In Maryland, as you know, there are a lot of dispensaries.
Sure.
So I started visiting various dispensaries, asking a lot of notes. And I just was like, it was so exciting to me. I couldn't believe that between talking about terpenes and sativa and indica, and I was keeping charts as to what terpenes would help me with what thing and what strains.
So you're becoming a bit of a self-taught expert just out of necessity.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I kept saying to the people at the dispensary, the one that I wanted to work at, aren't you guys hiring? Don't you need to hire somebody? I'm perfect. I have a science background. I have a medical background. You guys need, and it turned out they were. So I went they knew me as a patient. We discussed all the strains and the terpenes, and they could see me learning. So I think just being there and having my face there was very helpful. What I've since learned is they have 400 applications for every job.
Wow.
Wow. So you jumped right to the front of the line.
I got in circuitously. So, yes.
All right. Well, any way you can do it. Well, we're really happy to have you, Faye, as our chief health and wellness correspondent. And we really want to get into this bit about the vape illnesses. And there are initially when you hear it, you think, well, there's something wrong with vaping because there are all these people who have a vested interest in ending teen vaping and this, how unhealthy vaping is apparently compared to cigarettes.
I agree. We should not have teen vaping. Let's go.
Yeah.
All
Totally.
right. But when you hear these illnesses, you think, well, it's the vape. Well, then you hear, well, they've all been THC or cannabis cartridges. Well, then of course we knew y'all. See, folks, we told you marijuana was bad for you. But that's not really the case either. It's not the vaping. It's not really the cannabis. There's something else amiss there, wouldn't you say?
I would. And let me add a little bit to the story because I've been following it really closely. I feel like I need to know to tell my patients, if there's any potential harm, as a healthcare provider, I cannot recommend it to my patients. I mean, that's like my first ethical duty.
Right.
Basically, a few things to correct about what we're talking about. It's not just THC. It's THC and other e-cigarettes. Right. So it's coming in both cigarettes. So either way, it's not good for the cause for us because they want to blame the THC on it.
Okay, so just flavored e-cigarettes are culprits too?
Yeah.
I mean, people are getting sick from that too?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. And then also, it's not an infection. See, if it were an infection, it could be easily treated with some kind of an antibiotic.
Sure.
It is a respiratory disease is a chronic respiratory disease.
Okay, so you're damaged in your lungs.
Yes, and it has killed people.
Right.
I've seen stories of kids on ventilators. Interesting that it's all young people, though. I'm wondering about that. It's all teenagers.
So all of these cases in 33 states in the last few months of the lung disease, they're all teenagers.
Well, unless that's what they're showing us on the news. You know what I'm saying? Okay. Maybe that's what we're hearing on the news.
All right. I would be interested to see the data on it.
Interesting to find that out.
Well, it stands to reason that the young people have greater access to the black market.
Bingo. And that's what I want to say is that, from everything that I am reading and hearing, like you said, Andrew, it's all illicit black market cartridges. And you're right. It's the thinning agent that they're using. And they're using either this vitamin E acetate, like you said, as an oil. It coats the lungs and you can't breathe. We shouldn't be inhaling that stuff. And then, but most of the companies, most of the vendors that produce the vape carts have put out statements saying that they don't contain the vitamin E acetate, the polyethylene glycol, which is PEG,
right?
The vegetable glycerin, which is VG, and the medium chain triglycerides, which are MCT. It's really interesting because MCT was very big in the nutrition world because it's a broken down fatty acid and it's more easily absorbed into your bloodstream. So who knows what the heck these things are doing to your lung.
But it's ingesting it rather than inhaling it.
Exactly. But still, who knows what they can be doing in your lung.
Right.
So they're saying they don't use any of these thinning agents. Not all of them have said whether they use any thinning agents.
Just those listed.
Yes. Now, Cresco, which is one of the brands, they did say we use no other thinning agents other than natural flavors, botanically derived terpenes. So natural flavors and botanically derived terpenes. That's the only statement I've seen thus far that's saying we don't use any thinners. And I even asked the question to one of my managers, and I'm really not getting a straight answer on that either.
I see.
I feel like there's still a lot of mystery out there.
How safe are the non-black market, the actual name brand vape cartridges?
As far as we know, we've gotten statements from almost all of the vending companies saying they don't use those specific products. And some of them said they don't use these thinning agents. But what we really don't know is, do they have something else in them? So they are saying they're safe. I have to believe that they're safe. I really do have to believe that it's black market products because I think we'd be seeing so much more of a wide range of this illness.
I agree.
I also think that there's a lot of people who come into my dispensary who vape a lot. So I kind of think it just makes sense that it's the black market industry to me.
Well, there was a story out that they tested some cartridges from dispensaries in California that tested positive for the vitamin E fluid. So now I was at the dispensaries today, and been talking to some other people in the industries in Maryland, and apparently Maryland has very strict testing guidelines.
Yes, they do.
Where California doesn't.
Really?
Apparently it got through in California because it never got because I don't know if it got tested, but in Maryland, not only does the flower, once they grow the flower and they test that, and then you process it to a product, and then they test that product again.
I mean, I have to say, Maryland has a really good program regarding purity and testing. They test a lot more than some of the other states.
So at least now we've identified it and be able to address it. Now, the National Cannabis Industry Association has come out and they've made a statement. And what they're doing, they're calling on Congress to do a few things. They're calling on Congress they're urging them to immediately remove cannabis from the Controlled Substance Act so they can do greater and more comprehensive research.
Yes, thank you.
That'll happen.
They want licensed vape cartridge producers are encouraged to halt the use of any additives, thickening agents until more data is available. And given the preliminary reported associations of some illnesses caused by vitamin E acetate, any licensed producer that has included this additive in recent vape production batches is strongly encouraged to issue a voluntary recall of those products.
Strongly encouraged.
In other words, there's no backup to it. You just have to. They're just asking to do it.
Let's get it done. Let's get it done now.
Yeah.
And I'd also heard that the CDC is telling people not to vape. So there's some other things going on there.
Right. Now, they're also asking the licensed cannabis retailers, and they're encouraging them to take steps to ensure none of these cartridges are available to their customers. They want them to check their inventories. And lastly, they want cannabis vape cartridge consumers are urged to immediately cease the use of any product obtained from an illicit market and to limit any future purchases of vape cartridges and other cannabis products to state licensed regulated businesses.
Hey, Faye, have you seen any reduction in sales since all this has come out? Have you seen any reduction in sales of vape cartridges?
Well, it's interesting because we happen to be slightly low on flower in Maryland. I think there's some growing pains within the program right now. But
not only Maryland.
Not only Maryland, right?
No.
But yeah, so there's a slight flower. I mean, we have flower, but there aren't as many strains available as there were. But that's okay. People are finding what they need. But I had a guy just yesterday come in and say, I want some, remember back in the olden days when you really used to get this really good green shit? He says, well, I want to get some, because I've been vaping and I'm kind of a little concerned and I want to buy some. But so he bought his flower and, I told him about everything that you and I are, the three of us are talking about, or the four of us, I should say. And, we discussed a little bit of it. But I still think there's a little bit of us giving the party line because we really don't 100%, you never 100% know. But then he said, okay. And we went through all that. But he also bought his two. He goes, yeah, but I still have to buy my 2 cartridges. So,
there you go.
It's like, I think it gives a person pause. But then it's something that it's a medicine that helps them. It's hard to switch because it is a medicine.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, Faye, from your kind of medical standpoint, don't you think that a bad cartridge would start producing bad results fairly quickly? I mean, how much of a cartridge of vape oil do you need to smoke that's tainted before you start getting sick in the lungs? Right. I mean, if you've been hitting the same cartridge for weeks and weeks, and I don't smoke that much, or vape that much, so it can last me pretty long. If I was going to get something, I'd have gotten something by now, right?
I can't help but think that all of these illnesses are all happening right now, so therefore there's got to be this bad batch out there on the market.
I hadn't thought of that, but
I don't know this. I don't know this for sure. I mean, Andrew, if you're saying California uses it in their vape cartridges,
I read a report that there was some companies that used the vitamin E fluid in their process and it got through the state regulations.
Still in their cartridges, are people? How come we're not seeing a higher percentage there?
Well, I think maybe it was just one company. It was a limited batch and only went to a few dispensaries. So
got it. Yeah.
So, but this is an ever developing story, and I think we're going to be coming back to this again next week, if not also on some of our mini-sodes, because this is sort of a very important hot button issue that's going to greatly affect the industry. I don't know if this is going to affect the legalization movement, but it's definitely going to affect the regulations that they write up.
Well, it's also giving ammunition to the anti reform folks. And we've seen that. Phil's editorial is a perfect example.
It's bullshit, but it's ammunition.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're right, Andrew, and I think we're going to be coming back to this issue. So, Faye, we're really glad that you took a little time and joined us, and we're looking forward to more health and wellness reports from you. Ladies and gentlemen, Faye Berger Mitchell. Please do check us out and let us know your feelings about this and other topics, any questions you would have. And we really would love for you to go on to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star rating and share VoteProPot-Cast with someone who you think would be interested in it.
Send us an email at podcast@VoteProPot.com. Call our message line at 240-257-2441.
There's so much information coming out every week on the subject of cannabis in America that we cannot even come close to touching all of them on the podcast. So we share as much as we can on Facebook and LinkedIn and our social networking sites. Please like, follow, and share us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. Just do a search for VoteProPot.
I've got the latest installment of Andrew's Reefer Sadness that we haven't done in a while.
Oh, my goodness. We haven't done that in a while.
This is a pretty sad story, though. This guy wrote an article in Foundation for Economic Education, which is FEE.org on the website. It's a libertarian think tank. So this guy named Craig Cecil, he was sentenced to life in prison without a chance of parole for a first-time drug offense. He currently resides at the federal prison in Terre Haute, Indiana. He wrote the article himself, so it's kind of interesting to read. Essentially, the story is he was never alleged to have bought, sold, or even used marijuana. Rather, his business repaired semi-trucks for a living. So he was like a mechanic. He had a mechanic business. These trucks were used to traffic marijuana. He claimed he didn't even know that. He was just fixing trucks. He says in a quote, "I didn't think I was doing anything wrong, as I didn't do anything with marijuana. I was wrong, according to the federal court in Gainesville, Georgia. My business, nestled near Chicago, was auctioned by lawyers in Georgia to pay for their services to secure the life sentence after my home and my savings were spent." This guy's been in jail for 17 years, and he has no chance of parole as it stands right now.
And he's lost everything.
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 His life. And
his life, his possessions, his business, his freedom, everything.
And according to the article he's written, he didn't even have possession of marijuana. He wasn't shipping marijuana. He just had a business that was repairing trucks that were moving it. So did he own
the trucks?
It doesn't say whether he owns them. It just says that he had a repair business. So
probably not.
I would guess, and to be realistic, the chances are he had some connection with some guys, and he was. I mean, I'm speculating here because the article doesn't.
Nobody has a repair business to repair their own things.
Yeah, that's right.
You go into a repair business to repair other people's things.
I'm saying the prosecutors probably came up with some, I mean, I can't believe a guy was convicted, even as ridiculous as some of these stories are. But anyway, he goes on to say, for over 17 years, I've watched robbers, rapists, and even murderers come and go at this prison. Last year, a guy in my cell block who killed 2 federal marshals was paroled after serving 30 years. And he's still sitting there, and he has, at this stage, no chance of even parole. So,
right. And watching violent criminals come and go.
Murderers, rapists.
What state was he convicted in?
It looks like Georgia. Now, it says his business was in Chicago, and he doesn't clarify the connection, but I would assume.
All right. Well, we need to find out where he was convicted and where he's serving time. And we need our listeners to flood
absolutely
the governor's office with demands that this man be released and his record expunged immediately.
Can a governor release someone who's in jail on federal charges?
Oh, if it's on federal charges, no. Then we need to send it to the White House.
Yeah. To close up, he says, from Selbach D a couple of weeks ago, John Walker Lind, the so-called white Taliban who shot CIA agents in Afghanistan, went home having exhausted his 20-year sentence. He came in after me And with good time credits, he only served 17 years, and he's gone home.
Jeez.
This
is not right.
It makes you cry.
It's just fucked up.
It's so beyond ridiculous. This needs to be shared. We're going to put this on our social media. When you see it, please share it. This needs to flood social media, and this guy needs to get out.
I got a story from Jamaica, man.
Jamaica.
Now in Jamaica, they legalized medical in 2017, and their industry is sort of slow to evolve, but the gray market is apparently making up for it. Now they're noticing a rise in tourism. It's also sort of it's honoring the Rastafarian culture and or traditions. But what Jamaica's doing now? Right now, they are courting Dr. Wilfred Ngwa. He's the director of global health at Brigham and Women's Health College. Anyway, excuse me. He's the director of some health thing at Harvard Medical School. Okay. Man, this guy's the title was a paragraph long, guy. I tried to forget it.
Some help.
Anyway, this guy's he's one of the country's leading experts.
I've heard that name before, for sure.
Yeah, so have I. That's right. But anyway, so they want to start an international institute to study cannabis in Jamaica. They've been doing research and they're setting this thing up, and apparently they're starting to get some traction. They're getting a lot of interest internationally, and they're setting up deals to start, doing medical research and possibly development from Jamaica, because they're also studying the climate there to see what strains and how they can maximize production.
Sure.
Now It's very interesting. They have discovered a non-cannabinoid, non-psychoactive derivative of cannabis called FBL03G. And they says this has a very good potential for treatment of pancreatic cancer.
Wow.
Which is one of the worst kinds.
Yeah,
right, which the survival rate is it's less than 5% or something. It's awful. It's awful. So they're really doing some serious research, and
sounds like it.
And it looks like that again, America's sitting on our thumbs and spinning our wheels while the rest of the world is moving on, and we're going to be just left in the dust.
Right on Jamaica.
Jamaica's the place to do it, man.
The only reason America will stay in the cannabis industry is because we buy 80% of all recreational drugs.
Yes, there's that.
USA. So for the latest celebrity news, the latest celebrity cannabis news, this week it's former New England Patriot tight end Rob Gronkowski. The Gronk. He is taking stake in Abacus Health Products, a Rhode Island-based company that produces CBD Medic, and is publicly traded on the Canadian Securities Exchange. Gronkowski, who is 30 years old. Can you imagine being 30 years old and you're retired, a multimillionaire?
With brain damage? Sure.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Good and bad.
I try not to imagine that.
Yeah. Anyway, he's retired from the National Football League after last season, a career plagued by injuries and 9 surgeries. He says, quote, "The injuries took an absolute beating on my mind and my soul. I was hurt both mentally and physically day in and day out." And he goes on to say, "I decided to walk away from the game for one reason. I had to recover." And he says that during his recovery, he's used CBD, and he says it's tremendous. It's helped more than any of the other medications that he was prescribed. So right on, Gronk. Surprised? Welcome to the club,
Way
bro.
to go, Gronk. Excellent.
I mean, he was nowhere near the end of his career.
No,
he
he's 30,
still could have been.
No.
Yeah.
Tight ends can last a long time.
Yeah, I mean, he was one of the best ever played the game.
He was amazing.
Absolutely.
Well, I hope he finds some comfort, and maybe he got out before the damage. The permanent damage wasn't too severe.
Right. I just think it's interesting how many of these athletes and ex-athletes are jumping into the cannabis. I mean, you don't hear cannabis game. You don't hear it as much from other, realms. But I mean, so many. We do these stories on celebrities. So many of them are athletes and ex-athletes.
And I'm looking forward to reporting the story that the NFL has taken it off their list.
Yeah, they mentioned that in here. They mentioned that they're working on it.
It's getting there. And when that story comes out, What the hell? I got dibs on it. No, you can't.
Yeah, sure.
I would love to be able to do that one.
AARP just came out in their magazine. They published an article discussing medical marijuana. And they're saying now this is a viable thing. And then they're saying there's enough evidence that it's helpful. And they're coming out saying they want to educate their members, especially the ones in legal states. And they're stressing, talk to your doctors or your healthcare providers and go about it correctly. And then they have a number of articles, and they describe the difference between THC and CBD, indicas and sativas, and the different, the difference between a tincture or an edible or what have you. They describe it all, which I think is just wonderful and
amazing, actually.
Right.
Well, it's legit when the AARP starts writing articles about it.
Well, I get those magazines twice a month, and I got it the other day, Andrew, and I opened it, and I said, what the hell? They have an article here on weed. This is great.
Well, what's happening is all of a sudden there's all these people, especially and they're older people, who sort of bought into the whole reefer madness thing, and now they're going, now I'm hearing from credible sources that maybe I should try this.
Right.
And also I'm hearing, the risk is minimal.
Right.
I mean, you're not going to die from it.
Well, also, let's face it, we're seniors now, guys. So a lot of them are people who
I'm not.
grew up in our era smoking weed when they were in high school, and then they quit for a while when they had kids and jobs, and now they're retired and they're going, yeah, what the fuck?
They're returning to it.
Yeah, they're returning
to it. It's very interesting. I read this, that in 1977, which was the year all of us graduated from high school, that was the year that cannabis use amongst high school students peaked.
Whoa, really?
And it's been going down ever since.
Well, I think we were a large part of that. So,
whoop.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
No, it's just that I'm serious. I think this is sort of a big deal that AARP is showing support and educating people, because they, more than any other organization, can influence, have a impact greater than any other organization.
And that age
I think it's going to be huge. This is a big deal.
It adds legitimacy and it adds gravitas to the whole subject.
Right.
It really does.
Now I'm calling on all dispensaries and cannabis companies to start offering an AARP discount.
Right on.
Yeah, baby.
To all of us card holders, we should get a discount. Because we've been the guys that have been fighting for legalization since 1977.
That's right.
Damn right.
So give us a discount and get off my yard.
Well, folks, thanks so much once again. We're really glad you joined us today for Vote Pro Podcast. If you like the podcast, we really hope that you'll give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or whatever platform you're using. Send this to a friend and see if they might be interested in what we have to pontificate about.
Send us an email at podcast@VoteProPot.com or call our message line 240-257-2441 if you have any questions for Faye.
And please, I'm begging you, please like and follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter and Instagram. Just do a search for Vote Pro Pot.
Sunday afternoon, like little birds on a cable, condemning forbidden fruit, but slipping it under the table. The table. Friday after school, Daddy's out with the boys and he's sipping a gin and juice right after telling the kids that it's poison. something new. Same old place that he started.